They were not just gangsters. They were businessmen in the shadows. The Sicilian Mafia. The name alone sends chills down the spine. But what most people don't know is that behind their violence and fear was an empire made of money, banks, and silent transactions. In the 1950s, while the world rebuilt after World War II, the Mafia found a new weapon: finance. They realized that true power doesn't come from bullets. It comes from money that no one can trace. They began investing in real estate, shipping, construction, and even small grocery stores that acted as fronts for millions in illegal cash through offshore accounts. The Mafia hid their dirty money in clean places: Switzerland, the Bahamas, Luxembourg, names that sounded safe, but hid rivers of blood-stained cash. One famous example: Michel Sindona, a Sicilian banker who became the financial brain of the Mafia. He handled millions for them, turning drug money into real investments. Through Sindona, the Mafia bought banks in New York and Milan. They used fake companies to move money, so the world never knew where it came from. This wasn't random. This was strategy, a silent invasion of the global economy, where the Mafia controlled cash flows, stock trades, and even politics. And the irony: governments unknowingly worked with them. Some banks needed the Mafia's money so badly, they looked the other way. By the 1970s, their empire stretched from Sicily to Wall Street. Hotels, restaurants, shipping lines, and even casinos, all touched by the invisible hand of the Mafia. The Mafia had become what it always wanted to be: untouchable. But as their empire grew, so did their enemies, and soon the cracks would begin to show. By the 1970s, the Mafia wasn't just a crime syndicate, it was a multinational company. Unlike every company, it had departments, managers, and profit goals. But instead of balance sheets, they had blood. Instead of marketing, they had fear. And instead of trust, they had silence. Their financial empire grew because they learned to hide in plain sight. They bought bakeries, construction companies, and farms. Simple businesses that no one questioned. Each loaf of bread, each building contract, each shipment of oranges was another way to clean dirty money. And the more they cleaned, the more the world welcomed them. Soon, they didn't need to threaten anyone. Money became their gun. Bankers became their soldiers. And accountants, their secret generals. They used fake loans, insurance scams, and offshore companies. Millions disappeared from Italy and reappeared in American banks, clean, legal, and ready to spend. To the world, it looked like investment. But to those who knew, it was laundering. Even churches got involved. The Vatican Bank, yes, the Holy Bank itself, became part of their financial web through corrupt officials. One name stands out: Roberto Calvi. Known as God's banker, he managed billions through secret accounts for the Mafia and politicians. But in 1982, Calvi's body was found hanging under London's Blackfriars Bridge, a warning from the people he once served. His death revealed what many suspected. The Mafia had infiltrated not just business, but religion, politics, and the global financial system itself. They were no longer street criminals. They were financial architects, building a kingdom no one could see, but everyone lived under. Behind every skyscraper, every luxury car, every booming company, a part of that money had once flowed through Sicilian hands. It was genius and terrifying, because when crime wears a suit, the law doesn't even see it coming. But no empire, not even one built on fear and fortune, can last forever. Soon, new enemies would rise, and the Mafia's secret money trail would begin to unravel. Every empire looked eternal, until someone follows the money. By the late 1980s, cracks began to appear in the Mafia's golden wall. For decades, they had lived in silence. But now, silence started to break. One man changed everything. His name was Tommaso Buscetta, a high-ranking Mafia insider who betrayed the code of omerta, the code of silence. He turned informant. Buscetta revealed the Mafia's deepest secret, its money trail. He told judges how the organization funneled drug profits into banks, laundered through fake companies, and reinvested into legitimate businesses. His testimony led to the Maxi trial in Palermo, a historic court case that put hundreds of mafia bosses behind bars. But behind the scenes, the financial web was even more dangerous. Prosecutors began uncovering offshore accounts, fake charities, and shell corporations, all pointing back to one name, Cosa Nostra. Billions were hidden in foreign banks. Authorities found that some mafia money was mixed with political campaign funds. The system was rotten from the top, and yet, even as they fell, the mafia adapted. They moved from cash to credit, from violence to economics. In the 1990s, they began buying digital assets, tech startups, and international companies. Their empire went online before the world realized what was happening. The mafia had entered the modern age of money. No longer men with guns, but men with spreadsheets. They invested in fashion, sports, even film production, places where millions could move quietly, under the mask of business. And with each new layer of complexity, they became harder to catch. The banks didn't ask questions, and the governments didn't want answers. The FBI, Interpol, and Italian police began working together. They followed digital footprints, tracing emails, wire transfers, and secret trusts. For the first time, the mafia's invisible empire had a digital shadow, and that shadow began to reveal just how far their roots had spread. But chasing the mafia's money was like chasing smoke. Every time one account was frozen, two new ones appeared somewhere else. The more the world tried to stop them, the smarter they became. Their empire wasn't dying, it was evolving. From the streets of Palermo to the skyscrapers of New York, the Sicilian Mafia's money had become part of the modern global economy, hidden in plain sight, just like it was always meant to be. By the early 2000s, governments had finally started to wake up. They realized the Mafia's empire was no longer made of guns and blood, but of numbers, networks, and power. In Italy, new anti-mafia prosecutors formed financial task forces. Their goal was simple: follow every dollar, no matter where it led. In the United States, the FBI launched Operation Clean Cash. They began freezing accounts linked to shell companies in Miami, New York, and Las Vegas. At first, the mafia laughed. They believed their empire was too deep, too invisible to be found. But then, one by one, their silent allies began to fall. Corrupt bankers, politicians, even high-ranking church officials. The media exploded with headlines: Mafia money in Vatican accounts, politicians funded by Cosa Nostra. The empire of secrecy was collapsing under the weight of its own greed. But the mafia never fought back with guns this time. They fought back with lawyers. They hired the best. They used loopholes, offshores, and fake names, anything to stay alive. Still, investigators found something shocking: over $120 billion connected to mafia-linked accounts worldwide. Money that touched every corner of the planet, from luxury hotels in Dubai, to casinos in Macau, to art galleries in Paris. Their fingerprints were everywhere. It was no longer just Sicilian, it was global, and that made it unstoppable. Even when one family fell, another rose in its place, smarter, quieter, and richer. The mafia had learned something powerful. To survive in the modern world, you don't need to be feared. You just need to be needed. And governments needed them. In crisis after crisis, their dirty money was used to keep economies stable. When banks fell, mafia investments quietly saved them. The irony was tragic. The world couldn't destroy the mafia, because the world benefited from them. And so, the secret financial empire continued, hidden not in shadows anymore, but in boardrooms, contracts, and digital ledgers. But history has one rule: every empire, no matter how powerful, eventually faces the truth. And for the Sicilian Mafia, that truth was coming soon. By the 2010s, the Sicilian Mafia's golden age was ending, but not because they were gone, because they had changed shape. They no longer called themselves Cosa Nostra. They were now investors, consultants, and partners. Their empire had become invisible, hidden behind contracts, crypto wallets, and digital currencies. It wasn't blood on the streets anymore. It was zeros on a screen. The mafia had gone fully global. Its heart still in Sicily, but its hands everywhere. Investigators found hidden money in everything: real estate, energy projects, online casinos, even charities meant to help the poor. The world had changed, but the mafia's rules stayed the same. Control money, and you control everything. Then came 2017, a major Europol operation hit Ghost Cash. It uncovered a network of over 400 shell companies across 20 countries, all linked back to one small village in Sicily. The empire had come full circle, from local crime to world power, and back again. When police raided their offices, they didn't find guns. They found laptops, gold bars, and thousands of fake company documents. In one moment, the myth of the mafia was stripped away. It wasn't mystery anymore. It was math. The secret financial empire had been built not on loyalty or tradition, but on greed, pure and endless. Yet even as the world celebrated their fall, a quiet truth remained. You can arrest men, but you can't arrest money. The mafia's money lives on, invested in companies, stocks, even digital currencies we use every day. It has no name, no face, and no flag. Today, when you walk through Rome, New York, or London, you might pass a restaurant, a hotel, or a bank without ever knowing who truly owns it. That's the final secret of the Sicilian Mafia. They didn't just create a financial empire. They became part of the world's financial system itself. And maybe that's the scariest truth of all. The mafia didn't disappear. It evolved, and now it wears a tie.